Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, and welcome to part two of my goals for Celtic. It's about 1 in the morning here in the UK, but I thought I'd make this video before I go to sleep. So, anyway, people enjoy it. I know on part one I was like sort of stuttering on my words. I didn't plan it as well as I like, and all that kind of thing. So hopefully I'll do a better job on this one, all being well. Sometimes I have brain freeze or whatever. But anyway, I hope Celtic fans especially and people generally out there enjoy these videos, and I hope that I inspire more people to find out about Celtic and fall in love with the club and that kind of thing all around the world. It's actually 30 years. I think it was 3 or 4 days ago exactly, but it was 30 years, and this year itself is 30 years since Celtic were saved from relegation or from liquidation even, which happened to our arch rivals, by a guy called, I think it's 83 now. So he's a legend for me and many Celtic fans. So anyway, yeah, just thought I'd mention that. And yeah, these videos are obviously on the topic of my goal for Celtic. And I was going to say in part one in the intro, but I messed it up kind of. But I meant to say, and today I'm hoping to focus on my goals for Celtic, and like a copy of other YouTubers, like when they do intros, like Blasphemous HD said, and today we're going to be focusing on such and such, or today we're messing up because we're reacting on scary videos. In his case, he normally says that in his intros. Certainly the videos I watch. Anyway, I'm waffling, I know. But yeah, so here is part two of my goals for Celtic, and I think it's quite apt. Although I didn't realise it till recently, I forgot that it's 30 years since say Fergus McCann saved Celtic from liquidation. But I hope you'll share this with any possible Celtic fans you know, if you know any Celtic fans and people who might be interested in learning about Celtic and its history. I think that covers everything for the intro. So I've got to admit, as I say, I haven't planned this as well as I like, just like in part one, but I hope I will come up with some ideas just as I did in part one. And here goes. Anyway, we'll try to stop laughing. Here goes. So number 11, I was going to say I'll try and keep this short and sweet, but I do struggle to do that. But anyway, number 11, I dream that Celtic will continue to improve, or actually improve. Like a lot of fans will probably say we haven't really improved this season. In fact, we've probably regressed, if anything, unfortunately. But I hope the club will improve and continue to improve. And I suppose that requires change. So I hope the club will come together and talk about what it can do to change so it can make improvements. Obviously, if you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result more than likely. As the old adage goes, it's a complex word for me. Anyway, I think on that note, it would be cool for the club, as I said in part one. Point number two, it would be cool to see what they can learn, what networks they can build, and also like how the club can connect with the fans, so the fans have more of a say in how the club can improve and things like that. Number 12, as I say, I hope the club can build on its networks with Barcelona and other clubs, and I'd love for the club to work with Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and transcontinental, especially Eurasian nations, those four groups of nations, and also like clubs in Africa, Asia, and whatnot, to build sports clubs, CSCs, Celtic sports clubs, and academies in all possible places all around the world. And what the club can do to tackle things like bullying and things like improve its PR and whatnot. And hopefully people will learn about its history all around the world. And I hope these videos inspire people who don't know much about Celtic, as I say, to check out about the club, any facts and information which you can find out on as I say, on Facebook. Then, well, probably on Facebook, but especially on Google and YouTube and whatnot, and social media and whatnot. As I say, Google is your friend. Yeah, you can find out all sorts of information. Number 13, I would love for the club to build links with, like, as I often say, I'm not Catholic myself, but I'd love for the club to capitalise on its Catholic connection and the fact that our arch rivals hate Catholics. So hopefully that will help. Will encourage Catholics around the world to support Celtic. As I say, even though I'm not Catholic myself, but I hope that will mean that they will support the club, buy the kits, and invest in the club, have shares in the club, have equity in the club, maybe even the Vatican itself, Catholic churches and whatnot, donating to the club and that kind of thing. Number 14, on that note, I think it'd be interesting to see what the club can do to solve problems around the world through its if it increases its capital. So what they can do through the Celtic for Good Foundation and things like that, or Celtic Nation Football for Good Foundation and things like that, and Celtic's role in being for good, Celtic for good and whatnot. And as I say, as part of Football for Good, and also again, as I mentioned in part one, how it can market and brand the club all around the world. And there was a point I was going to say, but I've completely forgotten now. Anywho, moving on. Sorry, number 15. As I mentioned again in part one, I'd love to see the club have its own, if they can, or could. And I might be being naive here, but I wonder if the club could have its own sort of bank account, which is like a special bank account where whatever money fans, shareholders, equity holders, and whatnot put into that, they know it's not going to go to just the bonuses or whatnot, but it will be used to buy better players, pay players' wages, bring in the best possible coaches, managers, staff, as I say, players, of course, directors of football, dietitians, and whatnot, which will benefit the club, and even youth development and things like that. And maybe it could be even managed by the fans themselves, so that they know that the money is going to be reinvested into what's going to benefit the club and not just line shareholders' pockets. And another thing I was going to say is, like, what if fans, again, I could be being naive here, but what if there's a way fans could not only have shares and so-called equity in the club, basically invest in the club and even sponsor the club and whatnot, but what are some ways the fans could even donate to the club, perhaps, and share their ideas with the club on how to improve, and basically have a fan's voice, a voice on how the club should be run, what it could improve upon, and what they want to see basically from the club, and how the club should go about achieving those sorts of things. Number 16, on that note, committees and think tank, or maybe at least just one committee or think tank might be better, in fact, because rather than having so many, because it could be just one place where people come together and share their ideas on how to improve the club, again, how to help it to market, brand, how to promote Celtic merchandise, how to sell it around the world, how to sell Celtic around the world to new markets, how to help more sports clubs, academies, fundraising for the club, to do that sort of thing and whatnot. And basically whatever will benefit the club, a group of people, the board, the fans, CEO, and all those involved in the club, the manager, players, coaches, coaching staff, the people involved in youth development and whatnot, to all come together to talk about their ideas and what benefit the club, and maybe listen to potential shareholders, equity holders and whatnot, to talk about what they want to see. Number 17, on that note, I would love for the club to have as many investors, shareholders, equity holders, sponsors and whatnot, and again, any legal form of investment. And I would love to see the club improve over the next 5 to 10 years in Europe. So I'd love to see the club win. And again, I know I mentioned this point a while back, but I'd love to see the club win a Conference League, maybe even a Europa League, or even a Champions League, which would be amazing, especially in today's age with all the money involved and how much better other leagues are than the Scottish League, which Celtic is involved in. It'd be amazing to see Celtic win those sorts of trophies, and even like a UEFA Super Cup and a World Club Cup. I was going to say Champions League, but I've already said that one, of course. A while back, Celtic won and became the first British team to win the equivalent of the Champions League, even before Man United, Liverpool and other giant clubs like that. And strangely did so with so many homegrown players. Obviously now it would be a lot harder to do that because of the money involved and the gap between the top teams and that kind of thing. But it would be amazing to see Celtic have that sort of plan and work towards what they can do to not only compete but even win in Europe, which it seems a long way off now. But I did say, like, when Brendan Rodgers came back to Celtic, I would accept just winning one or two, preferably one or two, or preferably three. And my goal was to see Celtic win 2 or 3 domestic trophies. I wasn't too bothered about Europe, although the performances being quite good were important. But I thought it's going to take a while, and I suppose I was proven right. In fact, Celtic, the most trophies Celtic can win is actually not even a treble. It's actually a double this season, which for most clubs will be quite a lot, but for Celtic it's not really as much as we would hope for, especially given the success of last season, especially and the season to an extent as well. But yeah, I hope Celtic can turn the fortunes around. In fact, this season it's going to be hard to even win one trophy, but so it's hard to see the club do well in Europe. So it's going to take, to be honest, a reality check for a lot of Celtic fans, because many were saying we want to do well in Europe, but that's going to take a while, at least 2 or 3 years, if not 4 or 5 years, to even at the moment we're not even competing in Europe. So a part of me thinks it's kind of unfair that Celtic have to compete in the Champions League and cannot drop down to the Europa League or even the Conference League, which might be more Celtic's level at this time. So it'd probably be interesting to see if Celtic could find a way, if there was some sort of way where Celtic could compete in the Conference League and win that, and then hopefully the Europa League and then the Champions League, and then the Super Cup and then the World Club Cup, which Celtic have never won but have competed in, of course. So it would be pretty cool to see that. And again, I would love to read from and hear from Celtic fans about what you would like to see domestically and in Europe. Like, how important is Europe to you, and how well do you think the club can do, and how long do you think it would be before we even compete or even win quite a few games in Europe? And that would be interesting to read. But using my imagination, I would love to see Celtic win in Europe in the next 5 to 10 years. I imagine the Rangers or even other fans from England or elsewhere will mock me for saying so, and even the suggestion that we would compete, let alone win things in Europe. But I hope the club can prove any critics and doubters wrong as soon as possible. But I think the club should be looking towards those 5 to 10 year plans to compete not only domestically but in Europe as well. Unlike with the Italian teams, my main priority for Celtic is to win domestically. Number 18, I hope the club will again accentuate, and that's a big word for me, but accentuate all the positives about the club around the world. So to market itself, as I say, across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and elsewhere. And again, as I mentioned before, like having academies and supporters clubs, CFCs, for Aboriginals, Torres and Strait Pacific Islanders, Maoris, Native Americans, and other groups all around the world. Number 19, I hope the club will also, as well as having success on the pitch, I hope they'll be able to help, say, for instance, Indigenous Africans and Australasians in software development, which will make the club look better and improve its PR. So it should be good for a mutual benefit. It should be good for the club in the long run. And also, number 20, I hope that they will be able to help people of all ages, and also especially Indigenous Africans and Australasians in STEM, science, tech, engineering, and maths. Anyway, I am out.